people don't realize is that not all of it is maintained by the town, right? Some of it's maintained by your HOA, some of it's maintained by a metro district, and some are even maintained by the Mile High Flood Control District, you know, the detention ponds, which we're going to actually get into next week, May 8th from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Erie Community Center. We're going to be hosting our One Spring Fling. That's our spring meeting that we're going to talk about all things that's going to happen, you know, over the spring and the summer. We're going to have sustainability there to talk about water conservation programs and programs available to the HOAs. We're going to talk about single hauler options. We're going to talk about irrigation management. We're going to talk about detention pond management and who maintains what, when, where, why. And we're going to talk about mosquito control. You know, we're getting into that season where, you know, we're going to start seeing mosquito control from BDCI come into town, just like we have in the years past. So join us May 8th, 5:30 to 7:30 at the Erie Community Center. More information on our website and social media. So Joel, let's get into it a little bit. How does open space mowing contribute to the wildfire mitigation efforts in our area? I think that's probably the number one question people want to know the answer to.
Yeah, great question. So our primary mowing in open space is along our trail sides, our whole trail system throughout our open space areas, and along any privately owned property fence line. So what we do there is the main reasons or the main wildfire mitigation reason for that is it does provide a buffer, which lowers the fuel load for if a wildfire was to happen. You know, you get a little bit less grass, and it's less likely to maybe ignite a wooden fence or something that was on a private property boundary. What that also does is it provides a corridor for emergency vehicles. If we've got a trail and both sides of the trail have a mow strip down them, it's much easier for emergency vehicles to be able to move and pass each other if they are fighting a wildfire.
Okay.
And of course, this comes with the caveat, this is for typical wildfire conditions. If we're ever talking about something where it was the Marshall Fire, something like a mow strip in front of a house or along a trail side is not going to do a lot. But this is for a typical wildfire condition. It does provide some protection and some sort of fire break.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. Well, next question for you. What strategies does your team employ to effectively control those invasive species through mowing? We talked a little bit about invasive species.
Yeah.
Switching gears a little bit. I'm going to check the chat, make sure nobody's popping out. So.
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the town of Erie, we practice what's called integrated pest management strategies. And that's, as you've mentioned before, it's no one way to control, in this case, talking about noxious weeds, that there's several different types of methods to employ. One of them is mechanical. That's a great example. That is mowing. Another one is cultural methods. And two examples of that are grazing or prescribed burning. We do not do prescribed burning at this time in Erie, but I'm excited to announce we are going to begin doing goat grazing this year. In a couple months, we are going to have a goat grazing contractor, and we're going to start utilizing that form of weed control as well. And we can check out our website, the Open Space and Trails website. We've got more information about that.
Yeah.
There's also biological control of invasive plants where you can introduce some of a lot of these noxious weeds come from somewhere else. So you can introduce one of their native pests into an area. Usually that's more suppression, not exactly trying to get rid of a weed completely, but it does provide some suppression. Lots of research involved with that because you need to make sure those pests aren't going to jump host species. And then there's also chemical control, and that's the traditional spraying herbicides in an area to control plants. We try to reduce that as much as possible. We do employ that in some areas, but using these other methods and using them in different ways, that's how we can really diversify our control of invasive species. And then specifically for the mowing, what we'll mostly do is for controlling weeds is spot mowing. So what that is if you have certain patches of noxious weeds, you can go in and mow them down. The two major factors with that are timing and the species. Some species are just not controlled well with mowing, but some are, the control is very effective. Timing wise, you want to do this usually when This particular plant has in the springtime, it's the roots shoot up all of its energy. It comes up, it's about to flower and reproduce. You hit it right there. The roots are exhausted of all their energy. It's not able to flower. And so if you do that over and over again, season after season, you can reduce a weed population by really hindering how much it's reproducing. So that's a way we are employing mowing as one of those integrated pest management strategies throughout the town. So if you see areas that may look like they had a bad haircut, that's probably what we're doing. We're going in there and we're mowing in these little spots, these different patches, trying to use that so that we don't need to resort to something like chemical control, or if there's no biological control available for some species.
Interesting. And it sounds like it's a multi-year. It's not just a, hey, we'll do it once and we're done, right? It's true management where you have to keep doing it until you get the desired result.
Yeah.
Take months,
some
years.
Yeah, some thistles have a seed bank life of 50 years. So I'll be retired if we're still working on some of those areas.
A lot of bad haircuts. Next question: can you share some examples of native grass species that benefit from mowing practices that we have here in Europe?
Yes, so I would say that most native grasses, they don't love to be mowed. We try to do as little mowing as possible. If someone was to want to, get into native landscaping in their own yard, or try that out as opposed to your typical like bluegrass kind of lawn there. Buffalo grass and blue grama are two good native grasses that can tolerate mowing. So what it is, they both grow relatively short. So if you put your mower on its highest mow setting, you're gonna disrupt their life cycle the least amount compared to other native grasses we have. They also take a lot less. After their first year of establishment, you could almost turn off your irrigation system and only water if it's a really, really dry period. Besides that, they don't need a lot of irrigation. They don't need a lot of fertilization. So you can really cut down on those two things and have those types of grass, buffalo grass and blue grama. But overall, native grasses, they typically it's best not to mow them if you can. But also in areas where we know we're going to have to mow, those are two of the species in what we call our short grass mix that we will put there, and hopefully they can establish and continue to grow even if they are being mowed.
Okay. So going back to the mowing and that you were just talking about, how does mowing impact the biodiversity of our open spaces, particularly in relation to native flora and fauna?
Okay, yeah. So I would say that regular wide area mowing significantly decreases biodiversity. Our native fauna require three things. It's food, water, shelter. That's kind of like a general rule of the three things that animals really need. When you have these taller stands of native grasses, you've got food. A lot of the smaller mammals and insects feed on the grasses and the shrubs in the area, the different plants. Water, these native grasses, they're perennial grasses, so they're growing year after year. They're not, even though they look dead in October, November, they're actually just dormant. But they develop these really big root systems. Some of them can be 6 to 8 feet deep. So they're actually still, even in August, September, when it's really dry, they're actually still pulling up water, and they're even though they start to yellow out, they're actually still have moisture inside of them, so they can be a water source, especially for a lot of insects. Mammals tend to need like a water source, like a creek or a wetland or something, but a lot of smaller animals can still get their water from these native grasses that still contain water. And then shelter. We have native birds that nest in some of the grasslands. We've got animals that make burrows in it, and they need shelter. They need to be able to hide from predators, or even to help them sneak up on prey. They need that cover, and having a mowed 3 to 5 inches of grass, you're not providing that for the animals. You're not providing that area for them to really be able to hunt and hide and move around, just protect themselves.
Yeah. Wow. Did not know about 75% of that. So we're obviously getting into the season where we start getting a lot of inquiries about open space mowing and why is this long, and the wildfire risk is very much a real thing. So we don't want to discount that. But are there specific seasons or times of the year when mowing is more beneficial for maintaining healthy open spaces?
So I would say it's least disruptive to the life cycle of most native grasses if you are going to mow later in the season. So fall, just like kind of October is generally when we target if we are going to mow a native area. We try to mow it high, so that's about like 10 to 12 inches high, and we try to do it in October. By then, most of them have gone through their seasonal cycle. They've grown up, they've seeded, and they're just kind of going into that, or they're either in the dormant phase or going into the dormant phase. So you can actually, if you mow, it can, you're spreading the seed rather than cutting off the source of the seed before. But what that will work and it won't disrupt. But what it does do is when you mow, you leave a thatch layer. So you just leave the dead material that's cut and kind of sits on top of the grass. It's really difficult to remove that. If you've got to get a rake, you just get a lot of material there. So it's hard to remove from a field. And that can also be a fire hazard as well. So it's a lot of people think, the standing grass that's dormant and there is a fire risk. It's also a risk if you mow it because you're leaving a lot of this thatch on the ground there. And like I said, it's just very labor intensive to remove. So yeah, it's best not to mow where you don't have to, but if you do have to, fall is the best time to do it.
There's probably not a machine you can go down Lowe's and like I can for my lawn at home thatch remove.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You can do your thatch removal and in a lawn, but on a large landscape area, it's impossible to do that. Yeah.
Now, what role does mowing play in preserving and enhancing the aesthetic value of our natural landscapes? Right, that's a big thing that we see. Like, well, that, right, like you said, it looks dead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so this is the thing where we get the most. And I would say that it's really depends on who you ask. A lot of people they like that clean look. They like everything to be look about the same height. But for every one of those people, we would have other people that call us and say, why did you mow this area? Because sometimes we do wide area mow sites. A lot of times that's for restoration because you actually want to mow down the current grass there, whether you're going to interseed or whether you're going to utilize a very specialized pre-emergent herbicide that you don't want it to be up above. You want it to get into the soil, so you need to mow. So we do that, but every time we do that, there are just as many people that say, why did you mow that? And I liked it before. There are that like everything needs to get mowed. So it's really split on public opinion on that. So what we do what's best for the environment, what's best for conservation needs. We use best management practices. We have established no-mow areas where we just let, the thing about nature, and it's becoming more and more recognized, is that nature likes to be messy. And I know that's where a lot of folks, it doesn't look nice, but it likes to be messy. There likes to be snags of tree snags on the ground, grasses of different heights, animals like that, plants like that. It's just, it's balances, it's a way to balance the ecosystem and have a healthier native flora and fauna.
Well, next question is all about balance. So how do you balance the need for mowing with environmental conservation efforts like you just talked about, such as preserving habitat for pollinators and wildlife, right? We love our pollinators here in Colorado. How do you balance the need for mowing with those considerations?
So yeah, it's back to that. We've established many of these no-mow areas that we really concentrate on creating a healthy grassland where our plants and animals can thrive, and we really try to we'll do weed control in those areas, but besides that, we try to do as little disturbance as possible. And so where we balance that is when we mow. Another reason besides is the aesthetics of it. It gives people a little bit wider of a corridor to, to enjoy their recreation there. So we'll mow that. Fence lines also, it just keeps a little bit of a buffer from our wild, our native landscape to someone's personal or private property. And also we will do the mowing, as I mentioned before, when needed in restoration areas. If it's for a specific restoration need, we will do a mowing of a wide area. But besides that, we try to really just leave it growing as is and try to nurture it and make it as natural as possible and weed free.
Sure. Can you discuss any challenges or obstacles you encounter when implementing mowing programs in open space?
Yes, I mean, I think the obvious answer to this is the Marshall Fire. It has been our mowing practices have been a lot more under public scrutiny since the Marshall Fire, and a lot of these misconceptions about what is actually a more dangerous for wildfires. So it's really counterintuitive, but I kind of mentioned this before, but when you mow areas, you're actually encouraging weed growth because the native grasses aren't able to complete their life cycle, and a lot of these annual weeds, these weeds that grow really fast and have really small root systems and then kind of just die really fast. One great example is cheatgrass or downy brome. It grows up in these areas we mow very quickly. You see it now. We continue mowing all the time, so we can kind of keep it down. But if you mow in an area and then you forget a mow cycle or something happens, those weeds become very prolific, and they're actually much higher fire danger. They grow really fast. Like right now, they're growing really fast. They get their seed heads real quick, and then they actually die. And they leave this very thin, wispy fire fuel right there for the whole season, even starting in July when these other native grasses are just starting to turn green and really green up. That one's already done. So it becomes a higher fire risk. So if you're mowing, you're encouraging weeds like that to grow. And also, if you're not mowing, as I said, these native grasses have these really extensive root systems. So they're holding water. So it may look to you like it's a dead grass area that's all waist high out in front of you, but actually it's a thriving ecosystem, and there is water in that area that can help slow down wildfires. And so it's actually more beneficial in many areas if you can do proper weed control and have these native landscapes that are healthy. They're actually better off for wildfire mitigation. So just public outreach, educating people on that whole system and why it's a better way, why the no-mow is a better option for wildfires is probably a big challenge for us.
Yeah. So kind of putting a bow on this, and you touched on a little bit, but I know this answer because obviously I'm in the department, but what community engagement, education, and initiative are you guys and gals undertaking to raise awareness about the importance of open space mowing, or sometimes the lack thereof?
So first, we've just kind of revamped our website, the town website. So if you go to just Google town of Erie open space and trails, every one of our open spaces has a corresponding land management summary. So it's a document we've written. It has maps of what we mow, what we don't mow. It has how often we mow and in which areas. And so it really explains the management practices being done for each open space. So it's specific for every one of them in town. And also in that document, it talks about the benefits of not mowing and why that's so important. Also, we do have a mowing tab on the same website that shows talks a lot about these benefits and why we don't always want to mow and why that's better. And then we're just kind of dipping our toes in the outreach. We've got an outreach event coming up on May 19th with Friends of Coal Creek, which is a nonprofit group that's working in several municipalities along Coal Creek, and also the Rotary Club. We've got a little 0.2 acre area that we had been mowing all the time for years because it's just basically a wheat patch. We're going to go in and we're going to turn it into a native pollinator habitat. So have a bunch of folks coming out. We're going to plant native seed. We're going to water it. They're going to come back and help with weed control, and we're going to actually make it a really functional, nice spot instead of something we just mowed every other month, and we're all over the growing season. So we're just getting into that. We're going to start working with groups like this, and it's I'm super excited about doing that. And then also we support, and we're on a lot of we're with a lot of different groups. There's a wildfire partners, Boulder Watershed Collective, Boulder Fire Rescue, Boulder County Fireshed Grassland Workshop. We have a lot of different groups in the area, and they're doing a lot of research. They have a lot of different land managers in the room, and wildfire mitigation personnel and professionals that and they're working together to just come up with these different ways that we can, number one, we can mitigate wildfire in all of our communities, and number two, it's kind of having a single message for folks. If all of our municipalities had different messages on how we're doing it, it would be it might be confusing for community members, but this is to try to create one unified message about best ways, best things communities can do to protect themselves, and the best things we as land managers can do to make our open space areas as being able to mitigate wildfires.
Joel, that was awesome. I learned a ton. I don't know about all you. I learned a ton. I'll make sure to put the website and all the information that we had that Joel and his team has put together. We do have, I've looked at those land management plans. I think that's fantastic information. I'll make sure that our HOA partners know that as well. And then I think just wrapping up and saying thank you for all you do. Thank you for all the, it's a lot of work, and it's not a one size fits all, as you guys have explained to us. So really appreciate your time, and guess we'll see it out on the tractor or out weeding and mowing here.
Oh yeah, it's that time of year.
Yes, sir. All right.